What happened when an undercover CEO walked into her own smoothie cafe and tasted a lie? You're about to find out. Welcome, amazing listeners. You've got great taste in stories because this one is packed with secrets, courage, and a powerful comeback. When Sabrina Cole, founder of a beloved health food chain, suspected something was wrong at one location, she didn't send an email. She went in herself. What she uncovered would shake the foundation of her company. Get ready for a story that proves real leadership doesn't hide, it shows up. Let's dive into the taste of a lie. Sabrina Cole pulled her hoodie a little lower and stepped into the Fresh Glow Café in downtown Phoenix. It looked clean enough at first glance, sleek green walls, a menu boasting phrases like cold-pressed integrity and honest ingredients. But her instincts, sharpened over 3 decades in the food industry, immediately tingled. The citrus scent felt artificial, like air freshener trying too hard. She waited in line, watching the staff. The manager was nowhere in sight. The teenage barista taking orders barely made eye contact, tapping at the touchscreen with robotic disinterest. When it was her turn, Sabrina kept her voice level. Strawberry protein smoothie, no sweetener. Her tone was polite, unmemorable, exactly how she wanted it. As the drink was prepared, she glanced at the small fridge display. The cut fruit inside looked dull, the strawberries tinged with a slight brown at the edges. That alone wasn't cause for panic. Sometimes produce oxidized faster, but something about the setup felt off. When her name was called, she offered a brief thanks, grabbed the drink, and slipped into a corner seat. The moment the straw touched her lips, she knew the flavor was wrong. Not slightly off. Wrong. The strawberries were bitter, the banana undertone was flat, and the texture was chalky, almost chemical. There was a faint metallic aftertaste, the kind that clung to the back of the throat like a bad secret. She didn't gag or spit it out. Years of training had taught her to stay calm. Instead, she opened the drink lid, pretending to inspect it casually. Nothing looked out of place, until she checked the prep bin near the trash. A half-torn sticker was still stuck to the bottom of an empty plastic fruit container, wedged beneath napkins. She tugged it out and squinted. Tropic Harvest Logistics. The name made her stomach drop. That supplier had been blacklisted over a year ago after failing basic health and safety audits. Expired imports, fake organic labels, storage violations. No franchise should have access to it. Sabrina folded the label into her palm, wiped her hands calmly, and left the cafe. Her heart pounded, not from the smoothie, but from betrayal. Fresh Glow had been her life's mission, born from her own battle with cancer and a promise that no family should ever have to question what went into their bodies. And now, someone was risking everything she'd built, one contaminated smoothie at a time. She pulled out her phone and texted Angela, her head of quality assurance. We have a problem. Do a search on Tropic Harvest deliveries in Phoenix. Quietly, the taste still lingered, but now it had a name: fraud. Back in her hotel room, just a few blocks from the cafe, Sabrina Cole stared out the window at the rising Arizona sun, her smoothie untouched on the table beside her. The same metallic aftertaste still clung to her mouth. But worse was the bitterness blooming in her chest. Tropic Harvest, she hadn't heard that name in over a year, not since her team flagged the supplier for shipping bulk produce that failed safety inspections. Berries laced with preservatives banned in the U.S., bananas picked weeks too early and artificially ripened in chemical chambers. Sabrina had personally signed the corporate way ban. So how had it snuck back into her company? Her mind drifted, uninvited, to that hospital room 2 decades ago, tubes in her arms, a body ravaged by chemotherapy. It was a strawberry smoothie, fresh, unprocessed, made by a hospice volunteer, that had been the first thing she could stomach after weeks of nausea. That one act of kindness had sparked a journey. She'd spent years studying nutrition, traveling to farms, creating recipes from scratch, testing each ingredient in her own kitchen before building what would become Fresh Glow, a brand rooted in integrity, transparency, and the belief that food could heal. So this wasn't just a business breach. It was personal. Someone had compromised the very thing she'd built from survival. And they hadn't just faked a few invoices. They had broken a promise. A promise to mothers who brought their kids in for healthy options, to older customers trying to manage diabetes or cholesterol, to teenagers chasing fitness with green smoothies and protein shakes. A promise to herself. Sabrina turned from the window and pulled out her travel laptop. A ping from Angela had arrived. Tropic Harvest is still inactive in our system, but I'm cross-checking Phoenix stores now. Early signs show at least one other flagged order from last week, definitely not in compliance. Sabrina's jaw tightened. One store might be a mistake. Two meant something bigger. She opened a blank document and began a new log. Phoenix fraud incident. She'd document everything. TMOs, names, visual evidence. She wasn't just going to punish the people responsible. She was going to clean the house. Quietly, thoroughly, and with the same determination that once helped her beat cancer. Because this wasn't just about bad fruit. It was about restoring faith. The next morning, Sabrina arrived at the Fresh Glow Café not as a customer, but as Karen Blake, a regional inspector from corporate's Quality Assurance Division, a role she'd stepped into dozens of times before during secret evaluations. Her posture was firm, clipboard in hand, blazer crisp, hair neatly pinned. The baristas straightened up at the sight of her badge. Behind the counter, tension sparked like static. Then came the manager. Devin Hartley appeared from the back with the kind of smile Sabrina had learned to distrust early in her career, broad, charming, and just shy of authentic. He was in his late 30s, fit, dressed like he walked out of a company promo shoot. "Ms. Blake, welcome. Didn't know we had an audit scheduled this week, but we're always ready for HQ." His handshake was firm, practiced. Sabrina returned it with a neutral nod. "Corporate has shifted to unannounced quality sweeps," she said crisply. "We've had some anomalies flagged in your recent inventory logs." She watched carefully. His smile didn't waver, but his eyes narrowed a hair, just enough to confirm her suspicion. He was worried. Devin ushered her into the back office with smooth confidence, gesturing toward the modestly clean break room, the recently laminated employee values posters on the wall, the new smoothie blender still gleaming under soft lights. Everything was presentable. Too presentable. There was a subtle air of performance in the way the back room had been arranged. It was as if he expected to be watched and had curated the space accordingly. "We pride ourselves on top-tier consistency," Devin said, walking her through his prepared talking points. "Our suppliers are all in line with the Fresh Glow brand values. We haven't had a food safety issue in over a year." He offered her a printed sheet of weekly ordering data. Sabrina noted immediately that the supplier section had been trimmed down, just the names, no delivery IDs or dates. "Do you mind if I speak with your staff as part of the evaluation?" she asked, knowing full well it wasn't a request. "Of course," Devin said quickly. "We'll be a little short-handed today, but they'll make time." The smile faltered for just a second, a twitch at the corner of his mouth that gave her a glimpse behind the mask. As she stepped out of the office, clipboard in hand, she scanned the cafe floor. Employees moved with mechanical precision, all smiles, no chatter. But in the far corner, one girl, nervous, hunched slightly over the prep station, kept glancing toward Devon, then away. Sabrina made a quiet note next to the name on her shift list. Ruby Lynn, 22. Food prep. Nervous. Possibly scared. Observe closely. The deeper she went, the clearer it became this wasn't just a one-man show of charm and deception. Devin had built a culture of silence, and Sabrina was going to tear it down, one truth at a time. Sabrina requested a full walkthrough of the kitchen and storage areas, noting Devon's barely concealed hesitation. Standard protocol, she reminded him as she was led behind the smoothie bar and through the swinging metal door to the back room. The moment she stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. The noise of blenders and upbeat music faded, replaced by the hum of refrigeration units and the low murmur of two employees who quickly fell silent. She moved deliberately, scanning the prep counters, ingredient bins, and dry storage shelves. Everything seemed clean, almost suspiciously so. Even the labeling was overly perfect. Laminated tags facing outward, as if arranged that morning. Sabrina moved to the walk-in refrigerator and held out her hand. "I'd like to inspect the cold storage alone, please." Devin opened his mouth, then stopped himself. "Of course. Let me know if you need anything," he said, the smile tight around the edges. The heavy refrigerator door closed behind her with a thud. The air inside was sharp and cold, but Sabrina's nerves ran hotter than ever. She took a slow breath and began her scan. Plastic bins of blueberries and strawberries were stacked too high, some improperly sealed. She reached for one of the lower bins, opened it, and immediately recoiled. The strawberries were slimy, wet, with white mold beginning to web across their side. She snapped a photo and continued. In a corner were several boxes labeled Mixed Tropical. No supplier logo, just faded black type. One label was peeling at the edge. She gently lifted it. Underneath was the faint but unmistakable watermark of Tropic Harvest Logistics. Her pulse quickened. She peeled back another sticker. Same result. Sabrina stepped deeper into the fridge, kneeling by the pallet of pre-cut mangoes. She picked up a container and twisted the lid. The fruit smelled faintly sour, off, not enough to make a customer gag, but enough to mean someone had played roulette with food safety. She took out her phone, opening the secure evidence app Angela had pre-installed, and began snapping photos with date-stamped metadata. A creak came from behind her. The door opened, and Ruby Lynn peeked in, eyes wide. "Sorry," she whispered. "Devin asked me to double-check the celery bins, but you're not really QA, are you?" Her voice trembled with something between curiosity and fear. Sabrina straightened, her eyes meeting Ruby's. "We'll talk soon," she said quietly. "For now, pretend this never happened." Ruby nodded quickly and disappeared. As the door swung shut again, Sabrina turned back to the rot. The fridge didn't just hold spoiled fruit. It held the evidence of something deeper. Fear, silence, and systematic fraud. And someone had been counting on no one ever checking closely enough. Sabrina waited until Ruby's shift ended before approaching her. She didn't want to corner the young woman inside the store, not under Devin's watchful gaze. Instead, she lingered across the street, sipping tea at a cafe with a clear view of the parking lot. When Ruby finally exited the Fresh Glow location, clutching a backpack and nervously glancing around, Sabrina stood and approached slowly. "Ruby," she said gently. "My name isn't Karen, it's Sabrina Cole." Ruby froze. Her eyes widened in recognition. Sabrina's face was printed on every Fresh Glow investor newsletter and employee handbook, usually next to a mission statement about clean food and integrity. "I knew something was off," Ruby whispered. "You didn't talk like the other corporate people." She looked down at her sneakers. "Am I in trouble?" "Not at all," Sabrina said, "but I think you know something, and I need your help to fix it." They sat on a nearby bench, tucked behind a tree that gave a little privacy from the storefront. Ruby hesitated, chewing her lip before speaking. "We started getting new fruit deliveries about 2 months ago. The boxes didn't have any of the Fresh Glow supplier stickers, just plain white tape or labels that looked fake." Her voice trembled, but her words came faster now. "The berries would already be slimy sometimes or smell weird. Devin told us not to mention it. He said it was overflow from a secondary supplier that corporate approved." Sabrina frowned. "There is no secondary supplier, not in Arizona." Ruby nodded, pulling out her phone. "I saved photos. I didn't know who to send them to, especially after what happened to Zane." Sabrina leaned in. "Who's Zane?" "Zane Morales. He used to be the shift lead. He asked too many questions about the deliveries, where the driver's uniform was, why the invoices looked off. 2 days later, he was let go. Devin told everyone it was for stealing cash, but Zane wasn't like that." She swallowed hard. "After that, we all just kept quiet." Sabrina reached out and gently placed a hand over Ruby's. "You didn't do anything wrong. You were trying to protect your job, maybe even your safety. But now, you've done something very brave." Ruby's eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears away. "What happens now?" "Now," Sabrina said, "we shine a light on all of it, quietly, and we protect people like you and Zane from anyone who tries to bury the truth." As they stood to leave, Sabrina glanced back at the store. From the outside, it looked like any other wholesome cafe, but behind those glass windows was a rot that had started with fruit and spread much further. Back in her hotel room that evening, Sabrina sat cross-legged on the bed, laptop open and phone balanced on her knee as Angela patched into the cafe's back-end systems through secure remote access. "I've masked the login as a routine software patch from HQ," Angela said through Sabrina's earpiece. "No one on site will know we're inside their terminal. Give me 10 seconds? Okay, I'm in." On her screen, Sabrina watched as a digital map of the Phoenix Fresh Glow store's records unfolded. Supplier logs, delivery entries, point-of-sale receipts. At first glance, everything looked normal. Shipments from Fresh Glow's 2 approved vendors showed up consistently, complete with confirmation codes, pricing, and dates. But Sabrina knew enough to be suspicious of anything that looked too clean. "Cross-sector delivery confirmations with GPS truck logs," she said. Angela was already on it. "Done. We have a problem." The screen flickered as Angela overlaid 2 data sets. One told the corporate story. Fresh Glow-approved suppliers making weekly deliveries. The other, scraped from the cafe's own security log timestamps and Ruby's photos, revealed the truth. No official delivery trucks had stopped at the Phoenix location in over 7 weeks. In their place were unmarked vans arriving during off minutes, often early mornings or late evenings. Worse, the electronic invoices tied to these deliveries didn't appear in the central system at all. Sabrina's eyes narrowed. "They're keeping 2 sets of books," she said quietly. "A fake one for us, and a real one for themselves." Angela dug deeper. "There's a folder labeled Operations Backup Password, protected but not encrypted. Guess what's inside?" Sabrina didn't have to. Moments later, she was staring at a string of PDF invoices from Tropic Harvest Logistics, signed off by Devin Hartley himself. The produce was listed at nearly half the cost of the approved vendor prices. In one log, they'd purchased 10 crates of mixed fruit for under $300, 0 cents, a price that only made sense if the product expired or worse. "They're not just hiding it," Angela said. "They're profiting from it. Devin's been padding the books, faking supply records, and pocketing the difference. This isn't negligence. It's a fraud." Sabrina sat back, fury pulsing behind her temples. Every fake invoice was a stolen dollar, a broken promise to customers, and a threat to someone's health. And Devin wasn't acting alone. A few invoices listed secondary recipients. Locations in Tempe, Tucson, even Flagstaff. The fraud was spreading. "How big is this?" she asked. Angela's answer came after a long pause. "If those connections hold up, we're looking at least 8 compromised franchises. Maybe more." Sabrina closed her laptop. The time for quiet observation was ending. Now comes the reckoning. The Arizona sun was still rising when 3 unmarked SUVs pulled into the Fresh Glow parking lot. From her vantage point across the street, Sabrina watched as a team stepped out with precise coordination. Angela, 2 corporate attorneys, a representative from the FDA, and 2 investigators from the state's Department of Agriculture. All wore business casual armor, clipboards and case files in hand. No sirens, no spectacle, just quiet authority. Sabrina adjusted her blazer, slipped her real badge into view, and crossed the street. Her heart pounded with the weight of what was about to unfold. Inside, the cafe bustled with morning regulars. The smoothie blenders whirred, customers chatted, and the usual upbeat playlist bounced from the ceiling speakers. It might have been any other day. That illusion shattered the moment the door swung open and Sabrina stepped in, flanked by the others. Devon looked up from behind the counter, his smile flickering when he saw her again, then vanishing entirely when he noticed the others following. "What's going on?" he asked, stepping around the bar. His voice pitched higher, tighter. Devin Hartley, Sabrina said calmly. I'm Sabrina Cole, founder and CEO of FreshGlow. As of this moment, this location is being temporarily closed pending a full federal and internal investigation into health code violations and financial fraud. A collective gasp rippled through the cafe. Customers froze mid-sip. Employees stared wide-eyed. Devin sputtered, You can't just... Sabrina raised her hand. We can, and we are. Angela and the legal team fanned out to the back office and kitchen. FDA investigators headed for cold storage. One lawyer handed Devin a cease and desist notice, while another began logging inventory. Within minutes, the entire operation was paused. Customers were politely escorted out and given complimentary gift cards for their inconvenience. Devin tried to retreat to the office, but a security officer followed him, ensuring he didn't tamper with files or systems. In the corner, Ruby stood near the prep counter, visibly shaking but still holding her ground. Sabrina made her way over and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You were brave. You won't be punished for telling the truth. Tears welled in Ruby's eyes, but she nodded. From the back, Angela emerged with a sealed plastic bag. Inside were packages of slimy fruit with peeling Tropic Harvest labels and invoices marked with Devin's digital signature. This is just the beginning, Angela said quietly. Sabrina nodded. Let's make sure it ends where it started. And with that, the silent rot hiding beneath the surface of FreshGlow was being pulled into the light. The back conference room of the FreshGlow Café, usually reserved for birthday smoothies and staff meetings, had become an impromptu war room. Devin sat stiffly at the table, flanked by a corporate attorney he had called in hastily. His usual charisma had dissolved into a sweaty, pale rigidity. Across from him, Sabrina laid out the evidence methodically. Photographs of moldy produce, falsified invoices, supply logs, and security footage showing unauthorized deliveries during off minutes. Her voice was calm but edged with steel. Devin tried to play the victim at first. We were under pressure, he said. Margins were down, shipments were delayed. We had to get creative to survive. Tropic Harvest was supposed to be temporary, just a stopgap. Sabrina didn't blink. You served spoiled fruit to children and families under my name, she said, and you profited off it. Don't call that creativity. Call it what it is. Fraud. Angela handed over the lab results, confirming that the berries from Devin's location contained illegal preservatives and dangerously high mold content. Sabrina slid a photo across the table. A 7-year-old girl hooked up to IV fluids in a hospital bed. Her mother's handwritten complaint beneath it, ignored by the cafe's online feedback system, because Devin had blocked the message from reaching corporate. Devin's lawyer whispered something in his ear, but Sabrina cut in. This isn't a negotiation. We've already filed reports with the FDA, the State Attorney General, and our internal legal department. You won't be managing another cafe, or much of anything, for a long time. Across town and throughout the state, similar scenes played out as the investigation team executed coordinated raids at the 8 other implicated franchises. One by one, managers who had joined Devin's scheme were suspended, their operations frozen, and evidence seized. Sabrina monitored the process through updates from Angela, who coordinated the field teams like clockwork. By late afternoon, Devin was escorted out of the building. He didn't look angry, just small. For someone who had made others feel powerless, the reversal was a quiet, poetic justice. Sabrina remained behind, reviewing each employee's file with HR. For those who had been manipulated or silenced, there would be second chances. For those who had enabled or enforced the scheme, consequences were just beginning. What Devin and his ring underestimated, Sabrina thought, was not just her ability to find the truth, but her unwillingness to ignore it. In the weeks that followed the raid, Sabrina Cole became a fixture at FreshGlow headquarters, personally overseeing every step of the chain's recovery. The story had made national headlines. Smoothie scandal exposes supply chain fraud. But what shocked people most wasn't the scheme itself. It was how the founder, a woman in her 50s, who could have remained comfortably detached behind a boardroom desk, had gone undercover and dismantled it herself. The backlash was swift, but so was the response. Sabrina launched a sweeping transparency initiative called From Farm to Blender, requiring all franchisees to scan, photograph, and log every shipment. A new app was rolled out for customers to track the origin of their ingredients in real time. But she didn't stop there. Ruby Lynn, the soft-spoken prep worker who had risked everything to come forward, was offered a full-time role in corporate quality assurance. Sabrina flew her to the company's annual conference in Denver and introduced her on stage as a symbol of everything Fresh Glow stands for: honesty, courage, and conscience. The standing ovation lasted nearly 2 minutes. Zayn Morales, the former assistant manager who had been fired under false allegations, was formally exonerated and reinstated, this time as a training coordinator, responsible for coaching new hires in ethical practices and reporting protocols. "We failed you," Sabrina told him directly, "but you gave us the blueprint to fix it." In stores across the country, Fresh Glow employees noticed the change. Laminated posters that once offered sanitized corporate mantras were replaced by something far simpler, a framed sign reading, "If you see something wrong, say it, you'll be heard." Financially, it wasn't easy. 9 locations had to be closed temporarily, legal costs mounted, and media trust had to be earned back one interview at a time. But slowly, the tide turned. Customers returned, drawn by the company's unusual transparency and genuine humility. Even longtime skeptics praised the reforms. Stocks dipped, but then rebounded, stronger than before. Sabrina declined the morning show interviews and glossy magazine profiles. Instead, she spent her days visiting stores, speaking with teams and auditing processes herself. Not as a spy this time, but as a steward. The fraud had revealed cracks in the brand, but also something more powerful: the people willing to fill them with integrity. As Sabrina stood inside the freshly remodeled Phoenix Café, now staffed with a revitalized team and Ruby as assistant manager, she finally allowed herself a quiet moment of pride. Not for saving a company, but for restoring its soul. 3 months later, the Phoenix Fresh Glow Café pulsed with new energy. Morning sunlight streamed through the expanded kitchen windows, part of Sabrina's transparency initiative, allowing customers to see exactly how their food was prepared. Gone were the fake supplier labels and silent tension. In their place were gleaming countertops, local produce in clear-labeled bins, and a team that moved with pride. Ruby Lynn stood near the smoothie bar in a freshly pressed assistant manager uniform, guiding a group of wide-eyed middle schoolers through their first tour of a working cafe kitchen. "Every strawberry you see here was picked from an Arizona farm 2 days ago," she explained, smiling as she handed a berry to one of the students. "You can scan the code on the bin to see the farm it came from, and even meet the farmer online." Sabrina stood off to the side, watching. No media, no spotlight, just quiet satisfaction. She had declined an invitation to attend the sentencing hearings for Devin and the other franchise managers, choosing instead to focus on what mattered most: the future. Still, Angela had called earlier that morning with the update. "Devin got 6 years. Tropic Harvest's license has been permanently revoked. The rest of the network folded. The courts made them pay restitution." Sabrina simply nodded. Justice had been served, not with a dramatic takedown, but with accountability and change. As the students gathered around a prep station, one girl raised her hand shyly. "Is it true that someone tried to trick your company with fake fruit?" Sabrina smiled. "Yes," she said, "and we learned something important from it, that doing the right thing is never easy, but always worth it." At the end of the tour, Ruby unveiled a small plaque near the smoothie counter. It read, "Real ingredients, real people, real promises." Beneath it, a quote from Sabrina herself: "The secret ingredient is always integrity." Later that evening, after the cafe had closed, Sabrina walked the floor one last time, breathing in the scent of fresh-cut mango and citrus. The brand she had built not just with recipes, but with purpose, had been bruised, but not broken. In fact, it had emerged stronger, anchored in truth, and powered by people willing to speak up. Sometimes, she thought, a single spoiled fruit doesn't ruin the whole basket. Sometimes it reminds you why you started picking them in the first place. The story of FreshGlow's redemption teaches a powerful lesson. Integrity is not just a principle, it's the foundation of trust, and once broken, it takes action, not words, to restore. Sabrina Cole's undercover journey revealed how even well-intentioned systems can be exploited when profit is prioritized over people. Yet it also showed how one person's courage, whether a CEO or a young prep worker, can expose truth, spark reform, and rebuild what was nearly lost. The scandal reminded everyone that real leadership means showing up, listening to the quiet voices, and holding the powerful accountable, even when it's uncomfortable. It's not enough to have policies and mission statements. Values must live in practice, in daily choices, in the transparency of how things are sourced, managed, and served. FreshGlow's revival didn't come from flashy PR or quick fixes. It came from humility, hands-on work, and empowering those who'd been silenced. The lesson is clear. When companies treat integrity as an ingredient, not just a slogan, they don't just protect their reputation. They build something that lasts. In the end, the greatest legacy isn't the smoothie or the brand. It's the culture of honesty and accountability that turns betrayal into transformation.